Hi, and welcome to my presentation. Today we're going to review the heuristic analysis of Coursera. And in this review, we're going to focus on three heuristical standards that we have chosen that exemplify the problems that we have identified on the website. Using these standards, we can build a methodology that is structured and brings a measured response to the issues we've detailed, and provides some answers and recommendations that we can push forward and work on. Before we move on to our heuristical analysis, we should first review what is Coursera. Now, Coursera is a leading platform in the education space. It offers courses ranging from professional certificates and degree programs. Now, why is this important? Well, our user base is primarily beginners and students. These are our primary customers and our target audience, which is important to consider when determining your usability. Usability being reviewed through the heuristic standards is critical to Coursera's goals as a company, being a smooth and intuitive user experience which directly impacts the satisfaction of users. These heuristic frameworks guiding the work found within the heuristic analysis provide a foundation which supports analyzing how users interact with the platform. We've talked a little bit about what is a strong methodology, and a strong methodology is as follows. We must work with the heuristic foundations that we build our analysis from. So to approach Coursera, we examined it through the lens of our three heuristic foundations central to user experience we wish to analyze. This approach allows us to systematically identify problems within Coursera. This according to aesthetic and minimalist design, user control and freedom, consistency, and standards, right here. To simulate real user feedback, we constructed task-based scenarios to conduct our heuristic reports on. These tasks were enrolling in a course, navigating the website, tracking progress, and using the search and filter options. It was conducted in the following key areas of Coursera. This is for the scope evaluation: home page and navigation menus, enrollment process and course dashboard, progress tracking, and certification application flow, and as well as the search function within the course catalog. For the criteria, the structured approach conducted follows the scale as designed by Nielsen for ranking severity of an issue, and ease of fixing, which ensures a focused response when reviewing the website. Here we have the diagrams for severity rankings and ease of fixing rankings, with 4 being a usability catastrophe, which seriously impairs use of the product and cannot be overcome by users. And for here, ease of fixing, number 3 details usability problems which would be difficult to fix, requires concentrated development effort to finish before the next release, and etc. So let's take a look at our first heuristic standard, aesthetic and minimalist design. Aesthetic and minimalist design means that the system should reduce the irrelevant information presented on a dialog screen to reduce competition between information and allow for a design to remain relatively visible. You don't want what is important to compete with what is not important. So when we reviewed and by navigating through Coursera, we went through and noticed what is presented, whether it is irrelevant or relevant for the objective of its dialog menu. User control and freedom. User control and freedom is to provide good defaults and the capability for a user to undo or exit out from their point in the system. A good pencil needs a good eraser. That's just an analog I'd like to keep in mind when we review this heuristic. Reviewing user control and freedom as well is to review throughout the heuristic analysis what difficulties a user may face in the issue of navigating the system to return from mistakes. As our final heuristic, we review the consistency and standards of a website. To review consistency and standards is to look at a system and see if it follows consistent rules and conventions with each other, as to see if a user can anticipate how to interact with the system. When we review for it, we will be looking to see for inconsistencies of use within the system. Our findings for the aesthetic and minimalist design return 3 issues that we have noted down right here, as well as their severity ranking, as well as the ease of fix. On this issue, we have made note of a couple of things. Firstly, we've taken some photos to share with you as visual evidence for the problems we've found. Visual clutter distracts and takes space of the objective of the dialog menu presented. For example, on the home menu, it is filled with promotional banners and as well as clutter, which distracts from the main point of it, being a home space to first jump on to your website. So we can make some recommendations, like provide the capability of more than one course header in the homepage. Then as well, we look into ineffective design choices and which lead to difficulty of usability, which for this account, we look at the settings page and look at the time zone right here. Rather than just normal time zones, it operates by just having various regions and cities on a micro level, some of them being conflicting. It is a little bit of a difficulty to understand why they made that choice, but I believe it's because this is a global website. It might be the better option. However, it might be better to just make a dynamic changes to the options menu depending on user, as to select, for example, time zone, as well as reducing promotional content to clear up space. Then we review our second finding on user control and freedom, where we have identified 2 problems. Users cannot easily undo actions like enrollment, and no clear back or exit navigations in multi-step tasks. As this slide shows, we have a various image which shows how Coursera interrupts and must be navigated through a series of menus to cancel a subscription. However, despite this, it remains to be easy and not difficult, while they show, for example, in the Start Free Trial, it does say that you can cancel, and it shows many ways how to cancel your subscription. Recommendations, however, remain to be providing progress taskbars, for example, to see in which part a user is in to finishing a process, as well as providing an accessible window of time where one can immediately undo or cancel actions such as enrollment. Ensure that navigation has clear emergency exits such as back, next, or cancel. For our third finding, we review some problems: inconsistent button labels across pages, and that the navigation layout differs between sections. Across sections within the coursework, the navigation layout changes and causes confusion in the users. Inconsistencies within the button labels highlight an issue when examining it under the lens of the heuristic standards. Now, seeing here, we have the progress bar that is shown at 1%. When you are working on the course load, there is no indication of how far you are in the progress aside from the check marks. Recommendations is to ensure consistency in the regard of progress and keep it consistent with the navigation tools and buttons, with it presented in a recognizable pattern to uplift accessibility on the platform. Here is our quick little analysis: complicated setting dialog, visual clutter, and emphasis on promotional content as our issues, as well as the ones we've discovered before. In conclusion, the evaluation approach using the heuristic standards set by Nielsen creates a consistent and research-based standard of user experience and what works. It allows us to document a thoughtful methodology which creates a structured response to problems which can be highlighted in analysis. In turn, we get to improve Coursera with the analysis we provide.